Yes, that's right. It's Joe here for Joyrider TV. Last year's World Championships for the Hobie 16 marked the launch of the new global standard model of Hobie 16. There have been some changes made to what we're all used to. So we're just going to look at those changes and whether we think that they are good. So the mast on the new global standard is going to be from a single aluminium extrusion, which the European boats have been for a very long time. So no difference there. But for the US sailors, then those who are used to the composite masts, yes, you are going to have to be a little bit more careful with those overhead power lines. Then moving down slightly, on the old boats, the mast tang where all of the rigging attached used to be a single point where you'd have all of your trapeze wires, your shrouds, your forestay, and it would be quite crowded there and quite a lot of load on that single point. Now, on the new boats, the mast tang is actually the same style of fitting that we have on the Hobie Tiger, Hobie Pacific and those types of boats, where we actually have two holes where the trapeze wires attach. So the pin of the shackle goes through the upper one and the hoop of the shackle goes through the lower one, which spreads the load of the trapezes really nicely, which leaves the hole at the nose of the bow tang just for the standing rigging, which I think is a great choice because this makes the shackle where the standing rigging is attached much less cluttered. There's a lot less load on that one point, which should mean less failings for that shackle. As you can see here, there is a slight difference to the forestay arrangement in that on the older boats, there would be an integrated forestay and pigtail. The pigtail would attach directly onto the jib halyard with a shackle. But what Hobie have decided is that if any part of that failed, your mast was coming down. Whereas on the new global standard, we have got a separate pigtail, which is actually attached directly onto the top block of the jib halyard. The forestay, which is only going to hold the mast up when you're not sailing, is actually going to be around the side of the standing rigging so that it's out of the way. And then we only use that when we're not sailing, when the jib is down. I think this is another very good idea to separate those two. Then going down the mast, down the jib halyard, which at the top is the same, we can see about halfway down the mast, the old system had a fair lead on the front of the mast just to help keep the jib halyard out of the way of the leech of the jib. On the new global standard, that has been removed. So I'll be interested to see how that works when we're actually sailing the boat. I always thought that was the point of having that on there. And then continuing with the jib halyard, when we get to the base of the mast, the jib halyard has actually been put onto the other side. So it's all now on the port side of the mast, whereas the old style Aussie system used to be on the starboard side of the mast. The actual fittings themselves have changed slightly, where we've got a regular Ron stand block for the bottom jib halyard block. It's got a very chunky shackle on there. That new block allows the shackle to be a larger size. And then the actual cleat on the mast, the cam cleat is the same, but the horn cleat is of a slightly different construction, perhaps slightly more durable. Let's hope so. What I think is a very nice innovation is at the bottom of the forestay, there's actually been a second lug put onto the forestay so that a piece of elastic can then be tied, which means when your mast is up, rather than having to employ a second chain plate, that bit of elastic just takes up the slack in the forestay, stopping it from slapping into the jib too much. That means no second chain plate. As standard at the Worlds was fitted what might be called upside down, but that means we can actually put the tack of the jib lower down. I really love the simplicity of all this idea, makes it all a lot cleaner, less cluttered. The old jib car system, we had the separate knuckle duster style slider and then a static cleat. On the new system, it's a new Ronstan sliding cleat, which is very much made of plastic. So the cleat and the traveller slide together, which means your jib cleat will move when you change the setting of the jib traveller. I'm not the biggest fan of this change because what I can foresee is if somebody stands on one of these cleats, it's just going to snap the plastic mounting straight away. And I think what was nice before was if you were sailing a 2-sail reach, your jib traveller was all the way out, the jib cleat would still be fairly close to the mast, so it's a bit closer to the crew, making it easier for them to uncleat. But once again, we will see how that actually pans out in practice to whether we like it or not. The cleat for the traveller for the main sheet has been changed as well. It's now not the Harken, which we know and love, but this has been replaced by a Ronstan cleat. What was always nice with the 16s was that all of the cleats were the same, so if you had to replace any springs or the actual jaws of the cleat, they are all from the same manufacturer, so you could just keep some spare springs in your toolbox. The new main sheet system comes with the smaller top block as standard. Racing sailors of the Hobie 16 are fanatical about getting the boom as close to the back beam as possible, and by having a smaller top block on the main sheet, it means you can get an extra couple of centimeters of sheeting in there. A good improvement for the racers. How it is just for blasting, I'll let you know in a couple of weeks. Now, a feature that you might not necessarily notice is the gudgeons, the rudder pins, the shroud anchor pins, and the dolphin striker is now all metric. When we line them up next to each other, we can see quite clearly there is a big difference here. So what we can see is that the tiller arm on the old version was angled, so it was a bent tiller arm which brought the front ends of the tiller arm closer together, meaning that we run a shorter tiller connecting bar. On the new boats, these tiller arms are straight, and what I'm told is this means they're much stronger, whereas the upper casting has got that slight angle to it now, which means the front of the tiller arms are still going to be closer in, meaning we're still going to be running that slightly shorter tiller connecting bar. Very nice. To make it stronger is always going to be a plus point. Onto the tiller connecting bar and extension, one change there is now, rather than it being a spade joint on the tiller extension, it's now a fork joint, meaning it's much easier if you want to upgrade to an Aruba stick or a hot stick or any type of telescopic tiller extension which has the different connection at the end. Is what I'm told was the standard in the USA, which is a heat welded trampoline. So it appears, because it's been heat welded, it appears to be kind of like no seams, all one piece. Looks very nice, very smooth, very sharp. The big difference with the sails is, of course, the shape is the same, the cut of the sails is the same. It's just the weight of the cloth has been standardized and all of the sails now are coming out of the same sail loft. So wherever you're getting your boat in the world, the sails will have come from the same place. So they will be exactly the same regardless of where you are in the world. Again, standardization is the only difference here, where the different manufacturers of the hulls are using the same weight of fiberglass when they're laying up the hulls. So all of the hulls, wherever you are in the world, will be identical. So there we go. I hope that was as interesting for you as it was for me. I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Be back soon with some more soon on Joyrider TV.